Journalism. In my eyes, the definition of a good journalist is someone who is well researched, has attention to detail, non-biased, has integrity, and above all, is reporting on the truth no matter the consequence. But now, with every person having access to news at any minute of the day, now the definition of a good journalist is to push out a story as quick as possible to be the first outlet to report on it, regardless of research, and get the most amount of clicks. Whether that be through rage bait, clickbait, or anything to get you hooked, which in turn makes ad revenue for their media outlets. That's unfortunately the modern definition of a journalist. And on the AFL side of journalism, it has moved in an almost identical direction. Whether that be through tabloid gossipy stories, or of course the famous trade rumour, something that we used to hear about towards the end of the season, but now it's a season-long circus where the majority of the evidence for these rumours are players coming out of contract in 2 years' time. So today we are going to take a look at 4 journalists over the past 8 to 10 months which have encapsulated the main parts of modern journalism in the AFL space to showcase the different tactics the AFL media uses to try and trick the audience. So we'll be starting off with one of the more hated journos in the AFL space, Sam McLurie. Now, one of the biggest stories that got him noticed in AFL media was the story regarding the infamous Adelaide Crows training camp in 2018, which actually saw him receive an award for this reporting. However, the reward was later taken from Sam due to the report being redacted. But moving into more recent times, Sam McLurie has moved his style of journalism into rage baiting. Now, he does do some trade rumours, but over the past 8 to 10 months, what he was most called out for was his reporting on Harley Reid. Sam McLurie almost felt like he had an agenda, as he was reporting regularly about Harley Reid's desire to stay in Victoria when being drafted, despite the man himself saying that he was happy to play anywhere. It even got to the point where Harley Reid came out and said in an interview that he thought that Sam McLurie disliked him for some reason.
He obviously doesn't really like me, I don't think, so yeah.
But I think this shows the move from quality journalism into rage bait journalism showcased by Sam. I don't have an issue with the report about Harley Reid wanting to stay in Victoria to begin with, but as soon as the man himself comes out and says that he's happy to play wherever he gets picked up at, story done. But with the first report receiving a lot of hate, Sam would then take advantage of this by stating numerous times that Harley doesn't want to go to Western Australia or the West Coast Eagles. At points before the 2023 draft, it seemed like every few days Sam McLurie would have something to say about Harley Reid. And of course, on the money side of things, why would you stop? Harley is the major talking point around that time and grabbing all the headlines. So Sam would gather rage on social media by continuing to make statements regarding Harley Reid and where he's going to be playing in 2024. And at this point in time, it's made him look foolish, as Harley Reid has been thriving in his first year at the West Coast Eagles and has showed how much he is enjoying his time in the West. But back to Sam, this isn't the only time he's tried to gather rage when it comes to his reporting, as earlier this year, he released some predictions for the AFL season in 2024, which honestly is fine, by the way. I think it's a bit of fun to showcase some predictions for the upcoming season. But it wouldn't be Sam McLure's reporting without trying to get rage out of the viewer. So I'm sure all of you have heard AFL Central over on Instagram and Twitter, but they compiled a few quotes from Sam McLurie over a month period of his season predictions, and it truly showcases the way he's looking for headlines to get clicks on his articles. So this all started on the 29th of January, where Sam McLurie would say that if Charlie Curnow can't carry the team, the Blues could miss the 8. Moving just over a week later, Sam McLurie would say on February the 7th, if the Blues aren't going to be winning the premiership this year, something has gone wrong. He would later say that Collingwood don't have the depth that the Blues have, trying to get the clubs with the 2 biggest supporter bases riled up to attract more engagement. Continuing on the 7th, he said that Carlton have to be the premiership favourites, and if anyone tells you otherwise, they're not following the game right. So clearly this is an example to try and enrage the reader. I mean, you can make a statement like this without demeaning the people with different views. But just 2 weeks later, his tune had a drastic change. So when asked who will make the grand final in 2024, he would say Collingwood and Port Adelaide. So look, I don't think this is groundbreaking news for some people that the footy media is trying to gather engagement through rage bait or clickbait. But unfortunately, it's something that isn't called out enough. We as a football supporter base need to realise the different tactics that AFL journalists are using to try and trick us into either clicking their articles or listening to their views or listening to their trade rumours. Sam McLurie is honestly a clear example of the new age of AFL journalism. Now, of course, Sam McLurie is pretty big on the trade rumour mill, like I have said, and that's where we'll be moving to next. So I think everyone watching this video has heard a trade rumour going around this year. And I think at least one player from every single club has had some sort of speculation of theirs moving at season's end. And 90% of the time, the player either re-signs with their club or the rumours just die off. But of course, if you throw enough darts at the board, eventually one will hit the bullseye. And I think that's now the big issue with trade rumours in the AFL. It's now all about throw as many rumours out in the public eye with little to no evidence and hope something becomes true, rather than doing the adequate amount of research and coming to a conclusion whether a certain trade rumour has any sort of merit. So this leads me to the trade rumour from McLurie about a bombshell regarding Patrick Dangerfield, who is the Geelong captain that was being looked at by the Adelaide Crows, of course being his former club.
Well, Tim, Adelaide has made an audacious bid to lure Patrick Dangerfield back to where he started. The Crows recently pitching the prospect of Dangerfield's age and experience as being the perfect addition to the Crows' young list. Now, Dangerfield spent his first 8 years of his career as a Crow before leaving for Geelong at the end of 2015. And this shows just how aggressive the Crows will be in the trade space this off-season.
Now look, even if that was true, that the Adelaide Crows were keeping an eye on Patrick Dangerfield, surely the logical part of your brain would say, okay, that's not going to happen. Now this was quickly dismissed, as when the clip of the rumour was circulating on social media, we even saw Geelong teammates laughing at the prospect of Dangerfield returning to the Crows. And a week or two later, we heard Paddy come out and deny the rumours of the report.
It's not very often that Paddy Dangerfield comes out of contract. It's the first time, in fact, he comes out of contract as a Geelong player, a restricted free agent this year. The Crows have inquired just to see whether there'd be any interest. Paddy, while we've got you, it would be remiss of me not to ask if there's any update on your contract situation and an extension beyond this year at the Geelong Footy Club.
Not heading to the Crows, Mitch. Thanks for asking that.
Now in the interview, you can hear the words Mitch uses, that the Crows have inquired to see if Paddy would have any interest. Now if you don't analyse the words Mitch is using, you may miss how calculated they are. He doesn't outright say the Crows are looking at Dangerfield, or Dangerfield says he wants to leave, but rather the Crows have inquired about interest of Dangerfield. And this is where I think trade rumour news has moved to. Before, it would have some sort of evidence about players' desire to leave, or something substantial. But now, something as small as a club asking about a player turns into a clickbaity trade rumour headline. And look, some people may think the trade rumours are harmless and can just be a bit of fun. But during last year's trade period, we did see the dark side of when poor journalism can take a toll on a player. Enter Tom Morris. Last year, towards the start of the trade period, news came to light that Clayton Oliver was told in a disciplinary meeting to shape up or ship off, which brought the trade rumours flying. Now, I'm not going to say there was no truth to this report. I think Clayton did have a disciplinary hearing with the Demons Football Club, and I can definitely see a world where someone did say the infamous words to Oliver to shape up or ship out. But after the trade period ended and Oliver still was a Demon, Simon Goodwin, the head coach, was asked in an interview if the Demons had any thought of trading Clayton Oliver. And the Melbourne head coach said no.
We didn't consider trading Clayton Oliver.
So I think this shows a prime example of the current state of trade rumour reporting as well. Having bare-boned evidence with the potential of a big story, but then trying to come to a conclusion that fits a certain narrative. Now I understand you could make the argument that hearing the words shape up or ship out could mean the Demons could move Oliver on to another club. But I think a more realistic explanation for someone saying that to Clayton is to give him some tough love. Think of it as a parent telling their kids to stop acting up or they'll ship them off to boarding school. Not so much an empty threat, but rather a mature figure trying to get Clayton to be a better person and shape up. So the onus on this poor, inaccurate reporting has to go to Tom Morris, because his reporting on something that should have been private was the big reason for all these false trade rumours over last year's trade period. And with his reporting in this situation, I believe it is the catalyst into the spiral of Clayton's off-field antics in the latest off-season. So since the trade period, Oliver was hospitalised for having a seizure, being caught driving with a suspended licence and was later fined, and missed the majority of the off-season due to mental health and personal medical reason. And accounting all of this, we have seen a drastic drop-off when it comes to Clayton Oliver's on-field performance this year. So look, I don't mind the trade rumours, but why do we need to know about a player having a disciplinary meeting at a football club? Put yourself in Oliver's shoes for a minute and imagine if you've been doing something wrong at work and your boss calls you in to have a meeting. You get told that you need to start working a lot better or otherwise you're going to get the sack. So yeah, that sucks, but you were determined to do better and maybe you tell your close family and your partner. But now, all of a sudden, Tom Morris on SEN is reporting that you've had a disciplinary meeting and you were being shopped around to other companies. So now everyone in the wider public knows about your situation that should be private, but also you are hounded by the wider media so you can't even leave your own house. Now look, I know it's different circumstances than most people, as he's a professional athlete and the majority of the people watching this are probably 9 to 5 blue collar workers, but I think most people would understand where I'm coming from. So with all the mental fatigue and stress that Clayton Oliver would have been facing in this off season, I can see why he's had a massive spiral and has had a really down year. So what happens when you do something wrong at your job? Depending on the severity, you may get a written warning, disciplinary meeting, who knows? What does Tom Morris get for his show reporting on Clayton Oliver? A promotion from SEN Radio to the chief AFL reporter on Channel 9. Okay, that seems fair. Let me put it this way to Tom Morris. Did we get to sit in his disciplinary meeting when he was caught sexualising a fellow colleague of his? No, I didn't think so.
Barnard, it's fucking hot as.
Now I'm going to move a little bit away from Tom Morris for a minute and put on my tinfoil hat and say I don't think it's just the AFL journos trying to find a story, because I believe the player managers could be involved in sparking trade rumours to try and get some extra money for their players, but in turn, and probably the bigger reason, to try and get a better cut for themselves. I wouldn't be surprised if these player managers try to spin a story to a journalist or throw them some sort of bone that a player is wanted by another club, so the player's current club feels obligated to offer them more money. I mean, I don't know if that's true, but the sheer amount of trade rumours that come out and a few weeks later the player signs a massive contract to stay makes me believe there's something a little bit shady going on behind the scenes. I mean, I don't have an issue with the players getting extra money. I mean, get that bag, King. But I think it's the managers saying, hey, just hold off a minute from signing that contract so they can get a better cut of the deal. I don't know, maybe I've been reading too many AFL journo clickbaity articles and maybe my brain's getting fried. But hey, don't worry, we still have one more journal to take a look at, and it's honestly embarrassing how much this has flown under the radar. So a month or so ago, we saw some tragic news come to light about former Fremantle and Giants player Cam McCarthy passing away. At the age of 29, he was found unresponsive at his home in Perth South and was pronounced dead. Now you may be wondering why this story is a part of the video. Well, it's not exactly that story, but with the tragic passing of Cam McCarthy, this brought the infamous AFL journalist Caroline Wilson out of the woodwork. Now I'm sure everyone knows Caroline Wilson for her work on Footy Classified, and considering she has been in the industry for over 40 years, you could expect maybe a few mistakes here and there. But for some reason, Caroline Wilson tried to take a different approach by, instead of leaving her condolences to the family or saying nothing, she came out with this genius hot take.
You have to say that you have to have a look at the lifestyle in Perth maybe compared to other places. I really mean that. I mean, I don't think Cam McCarthy's problem started at GWS. I'm not saying he wasn't in trouble when he left GWS, but I think it started in Perth.
So I appreciate the Big Deeks podcast for capturing this clip. What I'm taking from this statement from Caroline is that she's trying to suggest the environment of WA is a factor to the death of Cam McCarthy. Now, is she blaming Fremantle? I'm not quite sure. And look, if by some chance Caroline Wilson had any sort of evidence to back this up, then maybe this statement could be valid. Even though I think it's very inappropriate, she could have a point. But to try and frame the statement as a fact with no evidence is just the state of modern AFL journalism. Trying to find some kind of hot take out of this terrible situation is honestly laughable. Now, I have no idea why she would make a statement like this, as at the best, she gets a few rage clicks, and at worst, she gets sacked from her positions in the media. But it seems like neither happened, and instead, this was just swept under the rug. Apart from a tweet or two from a few people and the Big Digs podcast, nothing was spoken about this. And no one calling for Caroline to at least show some type of evidence to suggest that this statement had any type of merit. I mean, for Christ's sakes, Jeremy Finlayson was suspended for saying a homophobic slur a month or so ago, which I 100% believe was fair. There's no reason why Jeremy should have said anything homophobic and deserved the ban. But then he said a comment in his wife's podcast about being pissed off, and instead of asking for clarification from the player himself on the comment and what he meant by it, the media took it as he was pissed off for the 3-week ban handed down from the AFL. But what he actually meant was he was pissed off at himself for saying the slur.
In the podcast, I'm more upset about myself, the words I used on that night, and it was nothing to do with the AFL and the sanction.
Would you say it was another slip of the tongue?
Yeah, you can say that.
So if the media are going to sit on some high horse and try and take some moral high ground on this issue, despite getting their facts completely wrong, then why not call out one of your own for making an outrageous claim like this? To suggest that Fremantle had anything to do with the death of Cam McCarthy is ludicrous. Now look, maybe she meant the statement in a different way, and maybe I'm misinterpreting what she's trying to say. But then I'm in a pretty big boat, as the majority of people are taking this as Caroline trying to make some sort of link between Fremantle, or at the very least the WA football environment, to the death of McCarthy. So again, why has no one called her out on this? Because anyone is more than happy to say she's a one-eyed Richmond supporter and act like that's some type of hate crime. But when she makes a statement that's so far-fetched like this, no one calls her out. It truly shows the real intention of journos, doesn't it? It's not about keeping people in check or keeping the journalistic standards at their number one priority. It's about money. It's about getting the story out as quick as possible, regardless of research. It's about pushing a narrative which is opinion-based but framed as fact. Trying to get clicks through rage and bait rather than facts and quality. And unfortunately, it's not going to stop. This is the way which all modern journalism is heading, ruled by monetary gains rather than well-researched journalism. Hey guys, thanks for watching this video, I really do appreciate it. Now I know journalists can be a pretty easy target, but the state of AFL journalism is really in a terrible spot, and is something that as a football public we shouldn't simply ignore and just accept what it is. And I think we as an AFL community should call out the tactics the AFL media, like not reporting on the truth, or using things like clickbait and rage bait to try and trick us into engaging on their media. So that's the big thing I want people to take away from this video. But guys, make sure of course to leave a comment down below on this video, let me know your thoughts about this sort of topic. Like and subscribe of course as always. Also make sure to share this to a friend if they're an AFL fan just like you. And if you guys want to show a little bit of extra support on the channel, we do have channel membership enabled on the channel here. So for just a few dollars a month, you will get exclusive badges and rewards on live streams on the Boundary Riders YouTube channel, as well as early access to our video essays that come out every 2 weeks. And you'll also have early access to the Boundary Riders podcast, and also we'll have access to our live recording of our Twinners podcast. So if any of that appeals to you, then make sure to click the link for channel membership down below, guys. But again, thanks for watching, and we'll catch us all in the next one.